You know, high-performing teams, they challenge each other rigorously. That's sort of like what we do, but we do it a little bit more viciously.
Without the high-performing.
Sometimes with no grounds whatsoever.
Correct. Some would call it unprofessional, Esmee, but, you know.
Others would call it a string of HR incidents.
That sounds a bit oversensitive, but yeah.
Welcome to Cloud Realities, an original podcast from Capgemini. And this week, we are going to explore the human side of team development, especially when you're picking up teams that are in the platform sections of organizations. How do you align? How do you motivate? And how do you ensure that you're delivering great technology in a complex world? I'm Dave Chapman.
I'm Esmee van Rob.
And I'm Rob Kernahan.
And I'm delighted to say that joining us this week is Amy Williams, Managing Director of Cloud Services Product at Barclays. Amy, great to see you. How are you today?
Really well, thank you, Dave. I'm really looking forward to the conversation today.
Likewise. And where do we find you in the world?
You find me in Cheshire, a slightly grey but not raining Cheshire.
Well, that's good. I used to live in Cheshire. I used to live in Stockton Heath. It's a very nice part of the world. It's a very nice part of the world. And I like the way it's sort of equidistant between like Chester, Manchester and Liverpool. So you get like, you know, there's lots of city stuff going on around there as well. It's a good spot.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Lots of nice countryside too. So good mix.
Indeed. Esmee's here. Es, how are you doing?
I'm good. Did you notice anything from our background?
Oh, the thing's gone.
Are you in a different room?
No,
it's the same room. I've just spotted that. Your whole background. What have you done?
I've painted it and I've cleaned it up and I have a different carpet and I thought new year, new surroundings.
New room.
Yeah.
Now, the photos that are there, did those used to be directly behind you? I can't remember now.
Yeah, it was. And it was actually I had some Lego, but I wanted to buy the new Apple Max.
Fancy.
We always have these discussions between Apple and Microsoft, Amy. So please be. Yeah, I don't know if you have a love for either one of them, but
I might have a small bias to Apple kit.
No.
Yes.
No.
Humans are focused on the right things, Amy. Think in that way.
We are.
But it was quite expensive, so I actually sold all my Lego. With the excuse to buy the new headphones.
Right.
Where did you sell it on like eBay or something?
No, there's a shop here in town that actually sells, all second-hand Legos, the old and the exclusive sets.
How do you know when you buy a second-hand Lego set that all the bits are there? Because that's like, that would be very disappointing. You get to the end of some massive build.
They check it, actually. There are people doing that the entire day, which is like a social workspace, or
at least. Do they build the set before the resale happens?
Yeah.
What a good job.
Yeah.
Lego quality control.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
You know, when you hear about that, some jobs, you just think, how did you get that job? I got a friend and he works for he works for a very famous tyre company, and he's the test driver. And what he does is he rides motorcycles and cars, and he basically drives them to their limit, and then the engineer takes the tyre and says, it performed better with that configuration, all this sort of stuff. He goes all around the world to different climates like the desert and the ice and all this sort of. That's what he does for a living. And I'm thinking, how did you get that job? You basically pay to drive a car as fast as you can to its limit to test the tyres.
Robert's here, everyone. How you doing, Roberto? Are you good?
I'm all right, David. It's Friday.
Yes, it is Friday. What's been confusing you this week?
Loosely coupled to tech. Dave, I've got
you usually are, Rob. Let's face it.
The tenuous link.
Yeah.
Right.
That was his brief for this section, wasn't it? Like, he goes like, "Should I just do what I'm confused about?" I'm like, "Well, try and relate it to the cost if you can."
Have you ever been arriving just at the last minute at a train station? Have to walk fast to your train, and then the doors close behind you. I've just made it. I've
done that. You know what I refuse to do these days?
Run.
I refuse to run.
You're not allowed to.
That's just your age.
It is that. It's the knees. It's the knees.
It's the knees can't take it. That's age, my friend. It's happening to me as well. The thing though is, a train station in Britain has decided to take the trains off the boards 3 minutes before they're departing. which I think is plenty of time to get to the platform.
And you say that as an anxious traveller.
I know, exactly. And so you arrive at the train station. You know that train's there, right? You know it's there, but the board won't tell you where it is.
That's annoying.
And that's very annoying for me. And I'm like, well, I can still make me train because it's a train, right? And it might be on the platform right next to me. But they've done it to stop people running last minute for the train. But all I think they're going to do is create more panic and confusion on the concourse with people trying to get home. So I am genuinely confused why they think this is a good idea, because I'm like, don't do this to us. You're just making an already horrible day even more horrible because I've got to wait an hour for my next train to get home. I don't just, when you go, what?
Just before we get into this, just remind us again how this relates to the world of digital technology.
This is removing information from the human as opposed to giving them more information to try and improve the situation. That is the link, David. Tenuous, I know, but I'm going to use it and stick with it, and I'm going to stand behind it.
I mean, I think you have won the award this week for tenuous link. Congratulations on that point, first of all.
But I was going to imagine if that happens to you, and it just it'd be so annoying. You go, where's my train?
It is annoying, and I would use the Trainline app, which is an app
which tells
UK
you where it is anyway. Yeah, you'd use digital technology, David, because that's you, Dr. Digital, of course you would.
There's also, when I used to do more frequent trips from the northwest to London, I'll have to go, I can't remember what it's called now, but you can get like a sneaky website where it will tell you the platform that the trains are going from.
That's what you want.
That they use to plan all the train routes. And so I used to maybe get to some stations later than I'd have liked. Text the other half if I was struggling for signal, get my cheeky bit of insight and then run. So I can totally see how that makes the running worse.
Is that the kind of functionality you can pick up on the dark web, Amy?
That's where I spend all my time, obviously.
Kind of thing. Pretty exciting. So, Rob, I think we've got to the bottom of it for you.
It's just
in this
wrong.
day and age, you don't need those platform things.
Yeah. No, but why have you done that for the people who aren't as tech savvy as those maybe here who can use? The websites exist to tell you where the train is.
Or the people that are on time.
Or the people who are just arriving on time and go, where's my train? You think it might be cancelled, it's gone. You're just going to push more traffic to the poor attendants who already have to answer the crazy questions and they don't have.
It just pulls the panic 3 minutes earlier, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's what it does. Yeah, I don't think it's going to help.
Seems like to me. I'm sure somebody did a terrific bit of statistical analysis about this.
There's maths behind
I can almost imagine the
there?
Graphs. I can almost imagine the surge graphs.
The Excel.
And it's like, I'm not sure that just changing the timing is going to change the surge,
It must have been a cracking, very interesting meeting, very exciting, where they came up with that harebrained scheme. They had a load of the public interviewed about it, and not one of them thought it was a good idea.
I think there's an opportunity, guys. How that decision was made needs to find its way to this podcast.
Yeah.
They're going to change.
I would listen to that.
There you go, Rob. You can actually do that. The first time we followed up a confusion.
We're going to actually get them on the pod and say, come on. Explain to us why this was a good idea. Come on.
Yes, that's the kind of consumer investigation stuff we're famous for, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's it. That's right. Consumer advice yet again.
Consumer advice yet again.
Multifaceted podcast.
On that note, I think we got to the bottom of it, though. I mean, we didn't solve the decision.
It was just a stupid decision.
Found a workaround.
Yeah, be digital.
Yeah. All right, look, on that note, Amy, maybe let's start a little bit with your background and tell us the steps that you've gone through that are sort of forming your opinion of the most effective way to transform teams.
Of course. So, in terms of background, I've been working in the financial services technology industry for the best part of 19 years. The first sort of 10, 11 years of my career were spent at a management consultancy. So I was largely brought in to help client organisations with challenging technology deliveries, complex systems integration programs. I've got a little bit of a background on software and integration testing as well as part of that. And then mid-2017, I got an opportunity to come and join Barclays. And I'd started a role there to lead the integration effort for open banking, which was a complex piece of regulation across the UK and Europe that required banks to provide external interfaces via APIs for customers to effectively work with third parties as a bit of a proxy channel into the main bank with all the right things like consent and permission. And on the basis those third parties were registered with the CMA, all that good stuff. I then, used that or managed to use that as a route to get into a CIO role. So at the end of 2019, I joined the Barclays UK technology leadership team as the CIO for our business bank. So that was running all the technology and the tech strategy for our small and medium enterprise customers. And at the end of 2023, I was given a new opportunity to move into our infrastructure organisation to head up all of our cloud, middleware and database products and services, which was a huge, huge change and a lot of observations in terms of how to build high-functioning teams throughout that journey. And I think that the lens that I got from the Barclays technology perspective is seeing things from the CIO and application development lens, and then the infrastructure lens as kind of an inside-out product provider, and really trying to look at how we operate in silos and how we break down those silos to make, I guess, a more functioning and performant broader group technology organisation.
How would you characterise? So it's quite well known, isn't it, that like infrastructure teams and more back office teams have different styles of working, different characteristics, perhaps, from say more front office teams or business facing teams. Now, I think we all know that in the transformed world of modern technology, there's less distinction between those two things. And we'll maybe come on to that a bit later on. But how would you personally, having worked in both and more recently transitioned into a back office style role, how would you characterize the differences?
Yeah, it's a really good and I think a really valid observation. When I was sat in the CIO world, my perception of infrastructure teams, and I guess that kind of, in inverted commas, back office type organisation, was a lack of customer empathy for the products and services they provide out to the broader teams, a pretty poor customer experience in terms of the acquisition of those products and services, not necessarily clear and good choices as to what your, hosting solutions and answers should be based on your application needs. And general, a bit of a misalignment and I guess a huge silo encapsulated away from that broader CIO landscape. When I hopped over the side of the fence that isn't technically there, it was really interesting to see actually like the quality and the passion of those teams, but the lack of understanding of the customer. Because if you like, obviously the further in you go, those teams have thousands of customers to support, thousands of different applications, thousands of different transformation initiatives. So it's quite overwhelming when you get into the centre and kind of think, how do you gain that empathy and that understanding and experience across the broader team? And there was an absolute desire to do good, but it was about how does that manifest itself? How does that become real, given the scope of the services that we ultimately provide?
Sometimes it can be difficult if your IT organisation is structured in a more traditional way with, like, say, a shared service sort of construct.
The layer cake, Dave. The layer cakes.
As you would call it, as you always say, Rob.
The layer. You know what I always say? Layer cakes, right? Hard to change. Yes.
And they're not only hard to change and difficult because they've been set up to be robust and resilient, but also there's so many Chinese whispers between whatever the business conversation requirement might need to be and then how it lands on a program worksheet or a service change or a backlog or whatever the methodology is at the back end.
And it's another side effect of financial lines. Go back to this is, why does the layer cake exist? Because it was deemed to be efficient and we put all the like-minded people together in a group and we say, you do your job, you do your job, you do your job. Creates a horrible chain of change. And then they can become parochial. And as you say, they absolutely lose empathy with they don't see the rest of the world because they only do one part of the value chain to achieve the experience at the end. And so they're left, aren't they, on their own devices, and they try and do a good job, but they don't have the context or perspective to be able to do what they really need to do. So you have to have understanding for people who are put into that organization as a function of everybody thought it was an efficient thing to do.
And I think also that gets compounded by the goals of the team being greater than the goals of the organisation overall. Because everyone's individually setting what their end of year target looks like, what good looks like, what is it I've got to get done in the next 12 months. And that's not necessarily effectively aggregated. So everyone can go, oh, right, we're going over there, as opposed to I'm in my lane. I've got to get to the end of my lane.
Yeah. So in then inheriting the team, you've got this issue. It's, kind of in the center of the IT organization. It might not be as connected as you ideally would like it to some of the business prioritization and those sorts of decisions. You've got that goals being bigger than the goals of the organization issue. I'm sure you inherited aspects of tech debt and difficulty in the tech stack itself. Where do you start in terms of transforming that into a higher performing function?
Yeah, so what I started with was validating my experience and perceptions of that team with other peers as CIOs. So I spent a couple of weeks having some what ended up being, I think, fair but pretty challenging conversations with some peers in the CIO teams to just sort of talk about their experience with our organisation, which led to a list of things that weren't surprising but nonetheless were pretty disappointing to read, to be honest. And then I played that back to my new leadership team to say, like, guys, first and foremost, I'm here to help this team succeed. Like, I'm not coming purposefully with a shed ton of infrastructure knowledge, opinions and experience. I'm here to help the team succeed as part of the group technology organisation. And here's what our customers think about us, which I'm not sure is going to be surprising, but that equally that's not going to make it a huge amount of fun to hear. And we talked that through and then had a bit of a conversation about how they were feeling, right? Just making sure that, again, most things are, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. And then we talked about things we wanted to do differently and how we were going to respond to that. And as part of that, I sort of validated with all of them. And it was absolutely a resounding yes. Like, my working assumption was we want to be like a team and an organisation that provides world-class cloud hosting products. And just making sure that ultimately we're all going to have the same shared goal to help the bank move faster, to help the bank deliver better software, to help the bank with it, cost and experience and all that good stuff. So we kind of started there.
And in that journey, in your head, what comes first? Is it the people or the tech? It's quite usual, isn't it, in heavy engineering environments that people will, and you look at an investment plan, and the investment plan will be, tons of widgets, as far out as you can probably see with the backlog that you can't afford. And it's very easy to just dive into trying to fix for that problem.
Yeah, we always tend to create a plan to resolve or fix or develop new technology without considering the new team that will be required to A, deliver that, and B, to support and run it. So yeah, completely valid point. And as we work through what those products and experiences should look like, and we set those plans, what quickly followed was a conversation around, right, are we match fit now, A, to deliver this and B, to run it? And we've got an opportunity now to talk about how we'd want to reorganise ourselves, how we'd want to address any talent gaps, but also most importantly, get the mindset of the team there. So a lot of our time spent in 2024 was talking to our team about why this was important, why people should feel excited, because we've got an opportunity to influence how the bank delivers technology from the inside out globally. Pretty unique position to be in, but also to really get the team revved up from that, where historically we'd been...
Oh, that is ace. What is that? Was that a notification on your iPad? That is ace.
I mean, that was pretty
The dings were rooted, but they were rooted to Zencastr. I love it.
I don't know what that was.
That sounded like a baseball score or something. It was Marcel.
There we are.
The producers knackered it.
Was it the producer that has done 150 of these? Yeah, you would think might be on mute, wouldn't you?
Was he playing a game? Were you playing a game on your phone in the background, not paying attention?
That is staying in, Marcel.
I was taking a picture.
Was that because I gave a really good answer? Do I get a prize?
Absolutely trashed an ace answer as well. Yeah. I think you should apologise, Marcel. Apologise.
I took a picture and then the ballpark sort of cheer thing went up. So
is that because we're all having a good hair day?
Yeah.
Podcasting hair.
Oh, no.
Baseball wind sound.
All right, then. Shall we get on with the professional side of this?
We can try.
Okay, so it sounds like a people-first strategy. Now,
yes.
As you set that out and as you're going through it, of course, it seems entirely correct that you would have those conversations and you would set a North Star or shared vision and all of those sorts of things. And it seems obvious. But why, in your opinion, do so many people miss focusing on that and lapse straight into focusing on the technology first?
I think where my head goes to on that is probably two things. I think it's easy to assume that everybody knows what we need to do and why we need to do it.
Yeah.
And therefore, we don't actually explicitly say, by the way, this is the thing we need to do and why it's important, and actually why it matters to the organisation and why it matters, frankly, to the careers of our team, right? Because if you're going to build new world-class platforms, that's quite an exciting thing to say you've been part of and put on your CV and feel proud about. But I don't think enough consideration is always put to, we should just say the obvious stuff, because don't assume it. I think the other aspect to it is people change is quite challenging. It's quite easy to fix technology, fixing humans, so to speak, culture, mindset, values. It's a long game. It's difficult, and not everyone's going to get there. And that leads to a set of really difficult conversations.
And there's a really interesting human trait in there at the beginning, which is sometimes people assume you know the context and start a conversation halfway through, and people don't understand, but they may be a bit fearful to ask the why question at the beginning, to say, but why are we doing that? And they just go on because that's what they're told to do. And then you just get this great confusion that continues to permeate through the organization, and you just reminding everybody of the story so far, like in Star Wars when the text goes up the screen, just to tell everyone why we're here and why the film's like it is. It's the same in corporate land, isn't it? You need one of those going on every morning.
Totally right. And now Star Wars style reels for infrastructure transformation is going to be in my 2025 goal plan. But you're absolutely right in that. I also think there's a bit of, when a big organisation has set a vision or a dream, if people, it doesn't necessarily lend itself to people feeling comfortable to say, I just want to understand that a bit more. I just want to ask a question, because I think there's a risk of either you're perceived as being a bit daft, or you're challenging the goals of the organisation. And some of that stuff we've got to break down.
Is part of that shared goal also that platform mindset? That servant leadership mindset, like we are here to serve the tech teams and we do whatever they need to have a flow in their work and whatever they need?
Yes, I think absolutely right. Absolutely right. And that's certainly something we're trying to think about, which is, okay, we've now got plans across our products. Cool. How does that wrap into a broader platform-based ecosystem where we support the data platform, the digital experience platform, whatever else it might be? And actually you've got almost back to a layer cake, but hopefully a better layer cake than the one that we had before.
I just want to underscore a point that you made a couple of minutes ago, which was the point about the basics, almost. The constant recommunication of basics, I think, has got such high value attached to it. And it reminds me of that thing, I can't exactly remember what it is, but it's something like you have to communicate something 7 times before people actually really hear it. They'll only superficially listen to it, then they'll stop listening to it, and then eventually, don't know what it is, but you drill in. It feels like that to me, just reinforcing over and over again, like what good looks like and where we're trying to get to.
Yeah. And always the why. And I think there's also a bit around that in terms of do we feel proud? And again, forgive the Friday morning cheese, but do we feel proud of the products that we're building? We're in the business of building and delivering products. So are we proud of what we currently offer, how we offer it, what it feels like? And as a customer, would we be happy to use what we've built? And historically, the answer to that was probably going to be no, not most of the time.
Exactly. So in then taking on this team, you were looking at things like motivation, alignment of the team around goals, clarity of understanding those goals. What then did you move on to do differently? I mean, that could be different enough depending on the state of what you're and the alignment level that you're kind of inheriting. But what did you do different, and how did you land that with the team in a way that felt, I don't know, safe to them or inspirational or whatever?
Yeah, so there was, to the point around saying things 7 times, I think I said it weekly, probably every week. So a solid 52 times perhaps. And that wasn't because the team weren't getting it. It was just a reminder in terms of why we're doing what we're doing, how it connects to the broader group strategy, but most importantly, how I wanted that team to feel, which is completely psychologically safe with me as their leader, right? Tell me what's going on. Tell me what problems you have. Yep. Tell me a little bit about you. Obviously, to the degree to which the guys felt comfortable, because there is a risk I scope creep on that topic, and obviously don't want to go the other way. But also then understand, because we had a big theme around how do I then create capacity and time for my leadership team to really focus on those things and focus on the underlying people transformation, because we then had to cut down into the organisation to make sure that all our different hierarchical layers and subgroups understood it as well, because I'm not going to deliver this kind of new vision with 10 people. We talked a lot about what keeps them busy, which then led to a really good conversation about empowerment and this organisational tromboning of problems where you'd have 2 guys doing, great work, shop floor. We have an issue, and then it bumps up and up and up and up the organisation because no one feels like they can make a decision, or they can take a stand, or they can make a priority call, so it does this sort of trombone up and then goes all the way back down, and that was taking a huge amount of bandwidth. So one of the things we did was double down a bit on what we refer to as like an empowerment drive, which is, it must be super dull for you guys to have to ultimately ask me or one of my team to make a decision, because we're probably going to send it back and ask what the best, because we're not going to know necessarily. We might have an opinion. So we spent a lot of time last year really reinforcing what that meant and looked like, because I think empowerment can be a longish word that organisations use that can possibly be a bit vapid or nebulous. And actually, what does it look like? It looks like decision making. It looks like escalation when there's no route forward. It looks like us trusting you and creating that safe environment where if you get it wrong, no sweat. We'll go and learn from it. Like, mistakes are perfectly fine. But that was something that was a little bit absent previously, for sure.
There was a great mantra I once heard very early on in my career, and it was, let every mistake you make be a new one, which was kind of like that point, which is, it's okay to make mistakes. Just make sure that you don't repeat your mistakes. That was the key.
You live by that every day, Rob?
Well, maybe I forget it occasionally, Dave. Like when I travel with you and you decide to, take me somewhere like Bugsy's, and I go, this has happened to me before. This is history.
I feel like I've made this mistake before.
I feel like I've been here.
I just can't remember it. I just can't remember I've been here before.
It's a trap, yes.
It's like a hyper quick retro happening live, as in a monologue.
I think it's undiagnosed trauma, if I'm brutally honest. I'm just voicing it through the medium of this podcast.
Should we flip context, Rob? Should we make this a bit? Do we want to go deeper on that?
No, you really, really don't.
That is the last thing you want to unpack right now, Amy, unless you want to create the longest episode of the show that we've ever done.
I mean, Guinness Book of World Records. Yeah. We can turn it into an audio book. I'm sure there could be room for that.
I love the idea of an audio book just called Bugsy's.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I digress. Go back. Yeah.
Where I was going to go with that is, so you pick up this team and you spend like a lot of time on the humans in the team itself. Now I'm taking this as an assumption, so feel free to correct it. The philosophy of that being, if we get that right, if we get the empowerment right, if we get the psychological safety right, other things will start to look after themselves, and the knock-on effect of that will be increased performance. I guess, first of all, is that the correct assumption, and how did the performance feed through?
Yeah, so absolutely. And it probably happened a bit quicker than I was expecting, which was obviously glorious to find. But what it resulted in is a couple of things, like peers across that organisational area, I guess, or level, so to speak, started talking to each other more to solve problems. And I was witness to some of that, which sounds minor, but when you've got like a couple of hundred people doing that, it's really quite energising to see. Yeah. We also saw a lot of storytelling in terms of, hey, we fixed this problem, and we've not actually had to go to a director or a managing director or anything else particularly lofty. There was a good stat as well. So my general manager for database went on holiday for a fortnight. Anecdotally, he tells me that he used to come back to 6,000 emails, which required some sort of decision or matter of attention from him.
Of course.
Last summer, he went on his 2-week break and came back to 300.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to metricize this, that would probably be my best crack. I think it.
And what you're saying there is, you've had an impact when communication pathways rewire themselves and you witness it. So you see different people interacting. That's a lagging indicator, but it's a great indicator of success, where if the organization is communicating differently, you've had a material impact on that organization. It's probably for the better.
Yeah, totally right. And we had... we have a load of internal, pages, and we've got a few pages dedicated to technology communities where, our folks will go and solve problems and post a story, whether it's like observability or SRE or new patterns or whatever it might be. And we actually saw members of our team posting on problems they'd solved together, or customer problems they've solved, or problems they've solved with the customer. And I also had a lot of, and again, a lagging indicator, but I got unsolicited feedback from some of my old peers around, had a great conversation with your team today. They've heard our pain points and challenges. They're going to wrap that into the next iteration of the release that comes out in however long period of time. And again, that was just, it's kind of obvious stuff that you would like to expect is happening. Yeah. But it wasn't, and it certainly wasn't happening before. And it was little things like that where you think, crikey, we've actually fixed something here, and then organically the right things are happening.
There's something, isn't there? I think I don't exactly know what the alchemy is there, but it does seem to me to be related to just giving people permission to have the space and think for themselves a little bit, and they don't feel like they're being micromanaged on stuff that was decided 6 months ago that they now have to kind of like grind through whether it's got usefulness or not. So they've got the space to think about things. They've got the space in what they're doing to listen and take in feedback. And then they feel safe to do that and safe to go, actually, you know what? I think we should do X, not Y, because I've just had this chat with John over there, and that, and he thinks this. And that is generally put under a label of things like empowerment and stuff like that, which sounds trite, but the reality of it is it's like just being humanistic, isn't it? And just like trusting the humans that they're trained and they're good at what they do to get on with it.
Yep, and that they know stuff and that they can make good decisions, and that ultimately we all want to work for the organisation, and we like working for the organisation, and we want it to perform well. It goes back to, when I was like super early days in consultancy land, I got a cracking one-liner from a guy I used to work for years ago, which was ask for forgiveness, not permission. So if it instinctively feels like the right thing to do, probably go and do it, unless it's absolutely wacky. Yeah. But I think there was also something around making, like, back to the mistakes point, there was almost a fear of inaction or not making a decision in case something went wrong. And people got reprimanded or told off or penalised or put under the corporate microscope. So there was a lot we did to talk about the fact that, guys, as long as we've tried something and it's not completely out of the bounds and the realms of possibility, I'm going to assume you're the experts, right? You care for the work that you do. Yep. You want to do it in the best possible, most efficient way. So make a decision and crack on. And if it's something that you feel is a bit risky, all right, let me know. Cool. I can be sort of ready to pounce as needed if there's a problem. But setting people free, but making sure, back to that point on psychological safety, was a real integral part of that.
That first leadership response is critical, huh? Especially when it's Friday night and you're tired and you just want to go off to work. Then, to fall back into your old behavior as leader.
Yes.
And you can undo everything that you've done in the past that is actually positive and building towards where you want to go to. But then that one mistake that makes such a huge impact on those teams that will, fall back into their own behavior.
Yeah, totally right. And if I look at, when we've got stuff going on in production, and the difference between, and my guys give me a heads up if it's something we might have caused or we might be part of, or something we might need to jump in and support about. That the first responder question of, okay, what help do you need? Versus, okay, what did we screw up? That really sets the tone. And I've seen that done really well, which is, have you got everything you need? What can I do? What burden can I take? How do I help make sure we fix and get things back on track? Then we can go, do the good retrospective thing, figure out what we do better next time. But I've seen responses where it's whose fault is this? Or what's happened, which implies blame. Which doesn't make people feel very safe.
No, it's like, who was holding the spanner? when this went terribly wrong. It's just not a great place to start, is it? I wonder then, in terms of your leadership kit bag, if you like, for want of a better phrase, you going into the situation, what are the kind of things that you had to deploy, and what intentional decisions were you making as the leader? Like the one we just talked about there is a great example of one. Were there others that you were thinking through as you were going in?
Yeah. So again, I think going back to the fact that I've not got a hugely extensive set of cloud infrastructure expertise or opinions, I made it very clear to my team that I will support their decision making and I will help them work through difficult options and be a sounding board. But I'm not going to tell them what to do, because that probably would result in awful things happening first and foremost. But also, I want them to feel properly empowered in their jobs and actually put some meaning behind what that empowerment looks like. I also said that, and not meaning to sound negative, but I said I want them to tell their teams to not contact them unless it really is a dire emergency, i.e. really try and enforce and encourage that mindset being percolated down the firm. We also did like really intentional events. So we put time aside in diaries and took time out of the day job to spend time on this, getting to know each other as a team, creating that psychologically safe environment, but also enabling other layers, if you like, of the organisation to do the same. So we took like days out last year, just to focus on like what does this mean for us, and actually have a really good conversation about culture and mindset and what this looks like in practice outside of and completely away from the day job.
And that, I think there's something in that is massively undervalued generally, I think. And they get even more important when the going gets tough. And the general instinct from a number of people is when the going gets tough, you have to knuckle down and you have to really start to drive it. And actually the reality is that can be counterproductive. If the issue isn't just of base capacity and throughput, if there's something else going on there, they're taking a bit of a step back. One, it gives you the opportunity, as you're saying, to ensure psychological safety pervades through a difficult time, which is hugely important, and everyone's on the right track and things. But actually just the act of stepping back might give you new solutions. Yeah,
totally right. And I think there's a risk, again, when you've got big day jobs and you know, you work in a big part of the firm and there's lots to do, that the things that you ask colleagues to think about become additive. It's like you need to do your day job and you need to innovate and you need to have a strategy and you need to do your mindset thinking and you need to be a good leader and you need to empower your people. Whereas I think the art of actually saying we're going to take a couple of days out, you know, a period of time, whatever that might look like, and we're going to spend time just on this thing, which doesn't feel naturally aligned to work we do as an infrastructure organisation, I think made everyone sort of, to your point, sit back and go, okay, this is important. Let's actually take some time for this and this in isolation. Like we're not going to be doing a release today. We're not going to be taking customer orders today, whatever it might be. We're going to sit and talk and really think about what this means for us culturally as an organisation. And that was quite powerful.
How did you deal with the skeptics and bringing the skeptics along with you?
And I bet there's still one or two permeated somewhere through the organisation.
Yeah, we might have some. I think on the skeptics, though, I'm a huge believer in radical candour. So be very direct with the things that you want to say. But again, to what we've talked a bit about on this episode, like start with why. So why is it important? So when I might have observed or noticed or been informed about, that makes us sound like a spy organisation, but you know, people that might need a little bit more help in understanding what we're doing and why it's important and you know, maybe sceptical. I went and had the conversation, which is not entirely sure you're bought into where we're going. Why is that? Because I genuinely want to understand, because to me and the majority of us, it feels like the right thing to do. So I want to know if you've got a different perspective, if you've noticed something that we've not seen, if there's something else in experience that tells you we've got this wrong. But try to have quite a direct conversation around really trying to get under the skin of what the dis or misbelief might be behind that person not contributing.
Now, we've spent a lot of time in the conversation talking about the more important side of things, actually, which always should be the human beings. But obviously there is a mission of the team, and the mission of the team is to provide technology. And I'm interested how you connected sort of the notion of platform-based or sort of back office underlying supporting technology to say like the purpose of organizations and things like that? How did you create the golden thread that made people feel like that they were contributing to say the success of the firm?
Yeah, we made a really good picture. So we made what doesn't architecture solve? Tell me what problems architects can't solve with pictures.
It's a box. It's a couple of lines. Everybody just gets it. Move along now. It's simple.
Exactly right. There's nothing a box and lines can't solve for. So
that's what Rob always says.
I'm getting that vibe. I'm certainly getting that vibe. So what we created was, our bank's mission is simpler, better, and more balanced. Right? We've been talking about that now for about 12 months. What we then laid out was, what does the technology organisation do at a macro level to enable that to happen? And then we decompose that into, right, what do our infrastructure teams do to make that happen? And then specifically, and obviously across the broader cloud organisation, we're quite a big part of that infrastructure mission. What are we doing? And we sort of connected the world-class products, delightful developer experience, best-in-class unit cost, right up to, that means this for what products and services our technology applications should build. That will then drive these following top-line business metrics in terms of new products to market or whatever that might be. And that then gets us to simpler, better, more balanced. So we actually took time to not do death by PowerPoint, but draw a really simple picture that shows actually we're not just a service and product provider sat in the middle of the company responding frantically to whatever requests might hit our door whilst we're on the tech debt treadmill of doom. It's like, actually, we've got a huge purpose that can help move the organisation forward. And so some of that was writing it down, and some of it was trying to explain it in a way that kept it simple, but people actually believed. I think because the organisation was probably run in a certain way for so long, there was no belief that infrastructure and cloud could be anything different. Certainly from the colleagues that maybe have slightly longer tenure with obviously new people that have seen different organisations or things from a slightly different level would come and go, hang on a minute, like, we're perceived as the engine room, like we're the enablement platform. We will make this bank deliver amazing technology products. Kind of strange no one else really seems to believe that yet.
Right. I wonder then, maybe just by way of bringing our conversation to a little bit of a close today, what kind of learnings have you had out of it as a leader going in? Obviously knew like how you were going to frame these things, but like as these things always do when you're dealing with complex situations like this, there's always something that comes along that's different to what there was before, even though you weren't necessarily expecting it, or it's a new area of an organisation that you've not worked in before. What are the couple that stand out for you as the big aha moments?
Yeah, I think some of the conversation we've had today, don't underestimate the value and frankly the need to state the obvious. The second one is like the muscle memory you need to build. You don't have like a really amazing all hands call where your team talk about their strategy and our new mindset, and we do that for 90 minutes and then call closed in January, right? That's us done for the rest of the year. It's that repetition of that muscle memory build that we need to do to make sure that we're constantly on our game with our values, our mindset, our leadership, our empowerment, and the good technology will follow. That discipline for me is, don't forget you need to do it.
Ez, where you go?
Yeah, so it's that time of year again. Huh? So we've all made year plans, or at least a lot of companies are still in a yearly cycle, and we all think about agile and we want to continuously adapt, but most of the time we're talking about yearly plans. And now it's February, end of February, where we're at right now. And then it comes to, how are we going to execute this? How are we going to take this out of PowerPoint into the actions of our teams? And I don't know if you know the book Polarity Management, but it's quite interesting. And how does it relate? Well, you have portfolio management, or at least you have projects, and leaders need to decide, are we going to go for this or that? But what I actually hear is that a lot of teams, they want leaders to decide, yeah, but is it going to be A or B? You need to decide. We can't do it all. But the response usually is, no, it's end. We're going to do end this and we're going to do that. And I think that's the biggest struggle for a lot of leaders at this point. So how do you do that? How do you actually manage those polarities? And if you look at Barry Johnson, who's actually the author of the book, he says polarities are interdependent. So choosing one over the other has consequences. So it is end, you would assume, but how can you emphasize the best of both worlds? So it's not only about stability versus change, or control versus flexibility, or one project over the other, or we're going only technical depth over new features that always sound more sexy. So usually they get the most attention in the companies. So I was actually wondering, Amy, what polarities are you managing at the moment? Do you recognize this?
Yeah, absolutely. What I've tried to do, and it's a very real challenge, but both in old job and in new or current job. The thing I try to do is obviously be empathetic to the humans in the team who are sort of looking at this crescendo of work, thinking, oh gosh, how am I going to make it to December? I try to kind of think about an and when, because this is all about the priority, like the order of everything, right? Because we can't do everything everywhere all at once, because that would be a catastrophe. You'd end up with very tired people very quickly. But to your point, Ez, on the tech debt versus modernisation versus innovation versus something else, quite often the thing I found is there are interdependencies between those things. And if you get your planning right, you can have some delightful 2-for-1 occurrences in terms of actually, if we start here and then do this and then do this, we will achieve at a macro level all those things but in an order, right? Because there'll be a logical sequence. There's also a bit of, as well for me as like a leader in the firm, of expectations management up the line. So, when we're getting to the point of unreasonableness in terms of load, where we can't do and when, and we can't necessarily get that logical sequencing right, there'll be, part of my job is to say, right, this is our best and final offer in terms of how we think we're going to get this stuff done. We're going to be ambitious but realistic. Here are what we think the sacrificial lambs are that don't get done this year. It might be a 26 thing, whatever, and try and front run that as quickly as possible.
Is there something on planning horizon too? You mentioned planning there, and it seems to me that if you wind back, let's say, be generous and say it's 7 years, but it might actually be more like 10. Planning horizons used to be these kind of artificially comforting annual plans or 3-year strategies.
It fits exactly in the window. It's perfect.
I know, to 0.25%, the cost I'm going to take out or the growth I'm going to drive, and I'm going to deliver that on the 31st of December this year. Where are you guys in terms of thinking about planning horizons? Are you still managing to land annual plans, or actually those, in reflection of the complexity of all the dynamics you've just been talking about? And that's before you even think about the market effects that are happening and, the weather outside of the company, so to speak, that means like you might have to be pivoting on a quarterly basis or a monthly basis.
Yeah. So we're running at the minute in my crew with a 3-year plan.
Right.
So we are, the constraint we have is an annual budget cycle, and we'll obviously lay down what we think is reasonable in that 12-month window with that budget. But one of the most refreshing things over this Christmas break just gone, starting the new year, and I remember I used to sort of sit with bated breath every January, waiting for my boss to tell me what the new things were we were going to do in that year, thinking about all the things we hadn't quite finished on the 31st of December previously.
Losing sleep with the excitement of it.
Yeah, exactly. Quietly being excited,
love it.
And maybe the small sweat. And this year, the delightful thing I got to tell my team is, we all clocked off broadly on the 20th, 21st of December. We've all come back on, 2nd, 3rd of Jan. Nothing's different. Yeah. No new dreams have been invented while everyone's confused in that between Christmas, New Year, eating too much cheese and port window.
Ooh,
we haven't decided anything's more important, because ultimately that's a 2-week period when most people take annual leave. That's the only real exciting thing.
Cheese hallucinate a new future.
No. Exactly. Yeah. No cheese. No strategies born out of cheese dreams. Nothing. Nothing. None of that. And it was really quite refreshing to say, guys, the stuff we said was important that we got a large chunk of the way through. Well, the chunk we said was in 2025. That's still the work that we've got to do. Now, there may be some exceptions, but I think the ability of us to do that in a way more mature state was quite powerful, because everyone goes, oh, right, cool, okay. The only thing I've really got to worry about now is how do I lose those £5? as opposed to reorganising the entire team around something new that might have been created.
And again, I go back to blame the finance community again. They've got a lot to answer for, but it's that they set that mindset of annual budgets and new things and new plans, and actually running on a capacity and running on a stream of work that doesn't change. You just prioritize it effectively and add things to the queue as you need them. Much better way to organize humans and get them to do stuff effectively. But we still get told to do this thing on these periods that must be exact. And I think it's damaged a lot of engineering teams from the way they have to operate. So
yeah. Well, it's artificial as well. Like the difference of a December to January is no different May to June or August to September. It's just we lose our minds when we hit oh my gosh, we've changed years.
Is that New Year? It's all going to be perfect again. As you bounce out on New Year's Eve with all those resolutions that fail within the first week.
Yeah, exactly.
Like new year, new team, all that kind of stuff.
New me.
Way more positive, right? I've actually seen epics shown up that an epic is called leftovers of last year. Like seriously,
it's still work to do. It's not leftover.
Imagine if you're on the leftovers team. Imagine
how demoralising would that be? Yeah, leftover team for you.
Yes. Well, on that note, Esmee, it has been delightful exploring the human side of leadership with you today and just how effective that can be, not only in driving up performance of a team, but actually in the delivery of technology in a complex world. So thank you very much for that. It's been great to see you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an awful lot of fun.
Now, we end every episode of this podcast by asking our guests what they're excited about doing next. And that could be you've got a great restaurant booked at the weekend, or it could be something in your professional life, or a bit of both. So, Esmee, what are you excited about doing next?
Right, I'm excited. I go personal first. I need to shave about 30 seconds off my minute per mile run time because there's a certain time in it that I want to achieve a 10k in. So that is job number one.
Very good.
Wow, that's challenging.
It is challenging.
Yeah.
I think I need to actually go and procure some new legs, and maybe that'll do it.
Maybe get a new pair of trainers. Some new kit.
I've tried. I've got a few rounds of that. Not working just yet. The number of boxes in our hallway is becoming alarming. I could build a little fort now, so I might just flip into fort building with cardboard. That could be sort of a career curveball this year. I think the other one on the professional front is really carrying on the great work we started this year. Right, so all the brilliant basics that we worked on across the team, and then how do we use that to get to like 2.0 of how we perform as an organisation and how we capitalise on a lot of, I'd say, difficult work but highly rewarding, and how do we use that to sort of 10x how we perform as a team this year.
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it, when you get into that phase of you are all aligned and you're all committed to the same mission, and now it's just about getting better together. Yeah. A brilliant phase in team development, I think.
If you would like to discuss any of the issues on this week's show and how they might impact you and your business, please get in touch with us at cloudrealities@capgemini.com. We're all on LinkedIn. We'd love to hear from you, so feel free to connect and DM if you have any questions for the show to tackle. And of course, please rate and subscribe to our podcast. It really helps us improve the show. A huge thanks to Esmee, our sound and editing wizards, Ben and Louie, our producer Marcel, despite the,
his failures, his consistent failures, yeah.
We could say that we'll never mention that again, but that would be an out-and-out lie.
We absolutely will. There's a list, and I've added it to it.
Oh, thank you to all our listeners. See you in another reality next week.